Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? Thank you for joining us today for today's Cafecito. It is my pleasure to be here with my good friend and United Latinas leader, Ilhiana Rojas. Welcome, Ilhiana. How are you today?
I'm doing awesome, and I'm excited to be on this side of the screen. It's fun. It's exciting. Happy Wednesday, everybody.
Yes, happy Wednesday and a happy Juneteenth. I hope that folks are not working and are taking time today to learn and to celebrate Black Americans and the really important history that is Juneteenth. We are here today to talk casually about motherhood, about life, about work, and about dreaming big. Um, and I'm really excited to be on this side because I've never done this before. And so it's always, it is good to learn something new every day. And today I am learning how to run my own StreamYard. So thank you, Ilhiana, for that opportunity because we can dream big together, right? And teach each other things along the way.
Absolutely, and I think it's very important, right? I think it's part of the conversation that we're going to have in terms of realizing that one, we don't have to have all the answers, and two, we don't have to do things on our own, and that there's always somebody there to help us, to guide us, to support us, and then we can take on and be that for somebody else. So yay!
Well, thank you for allowing me to be the one who asks questions today, and I'm sure maybe there'll be some questions coming back at me throughout our time. So I want to start by just framing the conversation that we're going to have. So we are both moms, and have worked jobs in industry, and and now are living this entrepreneurial life, and that means having to balance a lot of different balance or juggle, right? Or like drop the ball on lots of different things in different moments. And so I want to ask you first, motherhood changes throughout our children's lives. You and I are both about to reach a very important milestone this fall with our youngest going off to college. And so I'd love to invite you to reflect a little bit on your motherhood journey and how it's been impacted by the work that you do throughout.
Oh my God. Yes. On all fronts. I don't think I'm conscious about what's going to happen in the fall. I really don't. I know that many of our listeners and audience, some are moms, some are not. For me, I always wanted to be a mom. Like there was no question
Mm.
about being a mom. I always also wanted to work, always. Like I never saw those parts of my life not existing. And the other thing that I always knew is that I always wanted two kids. And the reason, and I tell that to my two kids, is because I have two arms. So it's like I needed to be able to hold one on each hand and make sure that they were good, they were safe. And that was like always, I knew that that was going to happen all the time. So now that one has left because the oldest is in college, the youngest is going. Now I don't know what to do with my hands. I've realized I don't know what to do with my hands, but I think you mentioned something important, which is motherhood has it change and does it change? I think it has in a way, in the way I've seen myself as a mom, and I would love to also hear like your take on it. And as I talk to other moms, what their experience has been for me, because I've always been clear that this is something that I want in my experience, and work has also been there. Like I think I've tried to make it work and figure the ups and downs and the ebb and flows and the challenges, because I cannot envision my life without either of them. But I've seen or I've heard from other people their experiences, which are completely different. And that has led me to then appreciate more of what I have been able to do and learn from those experiences so that then I can make my experience a little bit better, or at least when those moments are down, I'm like, okay, there is a way out. I just need to like take a deep breath and learn from those to be able to pick myself up again. But that is sort of, I don't envision my life being any other way, at least not now.
Yeah, well, and that's good, right? I mean, part of what you're speaking to is the importance of living without regrets, right? I mean, we can have really difficult things that happen to us and challenges that we face, and and some of those things, especially the things that are within our control, I really do try to live them without regret, because even if it was a mistake, right? Hopefully, I learned from that mistake. I'm stronger because of that mistake. I will do better next time. And for me, a little bit, that's definitely the motherhood journey. Um, Unlike you, I never thought about having children. I mean, I wasn't like my kids were like, I'm never having kids, but I didn't think about it. Like, it was not
Yeah.
on my mind. I knew that I wanted to be a professional and work. And so since I was 5, probably, I knew that I wanted a career. And it really wasn't until I was in my 20s that I started to feel like I wanted to be a mom. And so to some extent, I wasn't like, I hadn't thought much about what would happen, or how I would need to adapt once I became a mom, and was working as a lawyer at the time. And so I hadn't sort of prepared myself for that transition. And although I think, probably you could prepare a lot, and then depending on where you are and what company you work with, what environment you're in, all of that preparation is for naught, right? Because you don't know what kind of environment you're going to be in, whether it's supportive or not supportive, right? That in that moment when you become a working parent. I am, it's funny, your story about the 2 hands. I think that's absolutely true. And I don't think I realized until after I had my kids that 2 is a good number. I am one of 3, and I was the middle child. And so I wanted to have 2 children and not 3, because when we were growing up, like, someone was always left out. And it changed, right? Sometimes it was my older brother and I, sometimes it was my sister and I, and sometimes it was the 2 of them. But there was always one of us who was sort of a little bit on the outside. And I thought that if I had 2, right, that exclusion dynamic wouldn't exist. And I'm super lucky that my kids get along quite well. I mean, it's not perfect all the time, but they really do have a good relationship. And I, luckily have done some things, including Casita, which has me so busy in my free time that I think that's what I'm going to do with my hands when my kids are gone. So tell me how, when you think about motherhood, not maybe less from the the care or the drop off, and and the pickups that parents have to do. And I know you and I have taken a gazillion calls from our cars driving kids, but separate from like the physical motherhood aspects, when you reflect on the emotional support and the advice and that part of the mothering, what have been the biggest challenges, but also the biggest rewards?
Oof. There's a couple of things, and I think this is something that I know that you and I and many other, within us in United Latinas have chatted about, which is one is not knowing how to ask for help, which is critically important, especially if you're in this path of motherhood and managing many other things, because it doesn't necessarily always have to be just work, but just life in itself. And many of us, and I include myself in that, asking for help sometimes is not an option. And it's not an option because you don't think about it, or because you feel guilty, or you feel ashamed, or you feel that you don't deserve it, or whatever it is. So I think for me, learning how to ask for help has become a journey in itself, and I still, in a lot of times, and again, you and I have chatted, like it's still a challenge, right? Of being able to do that. And that becomes, I think, then critically important, because if not, you end up doing the picking and the all of these things. And that is an emotional toll,
Mhm.
because now there's an added pressure of having to deliver on your own expectations of whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish as a mom, right? For me, being at work, I always said work is important, but my family is the most important thing. And I'm not going to miss out, or I'm going to try not to miss out on the important things that I need to be present for my kids, like, their school plays or whatever it was that was needed. And so the emotional pressure that I put myself to, then having to deliver on work so that I could then leave at whatever time I needed to leave, so that then I could be there. Right. So I wasn't in charge in a lot of cases. I was very lucky, because my husband was the one that was taking the kids back and forth to all these things. But there was a pressure of, I needed to be in the play, or I needed to be, taking them to the party, or being in the whatever parent conversation. That was a huge toll from an emotional perspective. And I couldn't feel that I could ask for help, or ask somebody else, like, how are you doing it? Like, how are you managing and being able to navigate all of these things, even the pressures. And I, to this day, I still think about this, of having breakfast ready. Like, that to me was an important thing. Like, I could not go to work if breakfast was not ready and served and everybody in the family were already there. That was an emotional, like, pressure and stress, which meant that I needed to wake up earlier to then make, be ready, so that then I could have breakfast ready, so that then everything would sort of flow before I could hop on my car and go to work. I wasn't worried about the kids getting to school, because I knew that that was being taken care of naturally, but I needed to have all of those other situations, until one day my husband asked, like, why do you need to take care of breakfast? And I was like, well, because I always have. He was like, yeah, but nothing's going to happen, like, if you don't have breakfast ready one day. And that opened up a whole other series of situations. But these expectations, these emotional pressures, and just things that I thought that I needed to do, and to this day I sometimes still feel that I need to deliver on, have created this finding still the fine balance of what motherhood and work and expectations mean and look like.
Right. No, and I think I what you're saying, and that solidarity that your husband showed you is so important, but often we're stuck and we don't see that.
Right.
We have this story of what motherhood is, right? And of what mothers do. And then there's a story of what dads do, right? Or parents, if, because we shouldn't assume, right, that all parents are of a gender, or in those roles. But there are the stories that we live with. And so I love that your husband told you or asked you that question, because as you were talking, what I was thinking is, like, maybe we can reimagine what motherhood means, or what parenthood means in our family, so that it works for the people who are in your immediate family. And but that's a hard thing to do when we're carrying these expectations, right? And perhaps they come from our experience growing up, because our mothers did that for us. And I think sometimes it can also come maybe from what our mothers didn't do, that we want to do for our children, or our parents didn't do, right, that we want to do for our children. And I think you're right, it can create a lot of stress, and maybe even because then we bring that stress into our family, which isn't necessarily either good for us personally, but it's also probably not a good thing for our families because they see the stress. And then we're teaching our children those stressors. Um, so how have you, um, maybe what strategies have you used um, to catch yourself maybe after that conversation, right? Like, what are the things that you have changed as you've grown as a mom? And also maybe what have you done at work differently to have more freedom? So we'll sort of finish the motherhood conversation and then move to like the how do we balance work?
So, and I would share this, in my keynotes, or when I do change workshops with my clients. I know that for me, change is hard. I actually thrive on change, but controlled change. Like when I can see it, I can map it out. I'm very process driven. You know me, like
Yes.
that. I'll do it like no problem. Like just throw me into the wilderness and figure it out. I can't do like that. Is very hard for me to do. So when questions like, why do you have to do breakfast come up to me, they do a short circuit in my brain because I'm a process driven person. So like you said, like that's what I saw at my house and in other families. So to me, it became like a natural, like these are the chores and these are the things and these are the activities that you do. How I do them, I'm in control, and then I can become very creative in terms of figuring how to fit that into my crazy day schedule. But then when somebody comes in and says, and questions like, do you have to do that? I'm like, I really do not know, but thank you for asking, so that then I can go and look, okay, then what are other people doing? What are
Right.
other options that available, so that then I can envision this new possibility, these new processes, these new ways of doing them, and then I can jump right in. And I think that's what motherhood has been for me throughout these all of these years, right? From going from what I saw from my parents, both of them, because I actually take a little bit from both of them in terms of how I've experienced parenthood, or being a parent throughout my life, to being a working mother and seeing how those mentors that were also working moms experienced their life and shared their life with me. And that was like, oh, I can do that. Awesome. Let me figure it out. To then moving to the US and figuring out a completely
Right.
different way of motherhood that was not within my vision, so that I could say, oh, that's also a possibility. That's also a possibility. That, uh, not for me, but good to know that that exists. Because I need to see things. I need to hear them. I need to envision them, and then I'll be able to change and jump and adjust and create and maximize. But I have to see it first, to be able to navigate and do things.
Thank you. And I imagine, I mean, when I think about United Latinas and this amazing network of women, Latinas, it feels like there's opportunity, right, in our community to share information, to share resources, but also to just brainstorm, how to ask for support, how to get support. And so tell me, have you thought at all about how United Latinas might support um, moms in or families, right, in navigating these challenges of parenting?
I always say that, to me, something that saved me 5 years ago from going from a very difficult and personal moment was hearing the stories of other Latinas.
Hmm.
I didn't know it at the time, but having just conversations with many women, some that I knew that I knew, like you, and some that I didn't know, but for some reason suddenly appeared in my life, and hearing all of those stories was what saved me to say, oh, this is not working. And but all of there's all of these other paths that you can take. And that to me is what United Latinas is the possibility of showing those of us that are maybe stuck in a certain situation the possibility of what can be, right? I'm inspired by every United Latina that I talk to, because I feel like we all have amazing stories to share, and from each I learn so much. And I am like at awe at all the things that everybody has to offer. So I think bringing that sense of, it's not only bringing the sense of community, but bringing the sense that we're not alone, that we share, and that there's a hand that will always be extended to us, wholeheartedly. It's not like I have to, it's because I really want you to do that. And I think that's what we've accomplished through United Latinas, that sense of support in all of those moments, bad ones and not so bad ones, and good ones and great ones, right?
Yeah.
And creating that possibility. Absolutely.
So I want to transition to talk a little bit about dreaming big. And so I want to hear how you dream big, but I also want to hear, so that we keep the conversation connected to motherhood, how you think about and how you talk to your kids about how they can dream big. So first, for you, how do you dream big? And then how do you help them dream big?
So a long time ago, and I would have to think exactly when, and I will do it because I'm writing a chapter on that. I took on the like the phrase "nothing is impossible." And I firmly believe that nothing is impossible if you have the right resources, the right connections, the right way of doing them. You can definitely do everything. And that is something that I hold very, very dear to dreaming big. Because the moment that I get stuck on something that I feel like, okay, this is the end of the line, there's nothing else that can be done, that phrase comes back to me like, remember, nothing is impossible is your mantra. So then where do we go from here? Who do I need to ask? Who do I need to tap into? And I start with my lists of things, and envisioning like what that process could look like, because nothing is impossible. So that is what gets me to dream big, because nothing is impossible. So then what's next? It's always the what's next. Now, quotes or parentheses, right? I don't know how to dream from a blank slate, or at least I haven't
Yes.
learned how to do that. So then I have to go into other people's stories, see what's out there, become curious, ask questions, so that I can then envision that. And then I can go like, oh my God, there's a world that I didn't know existed out there. Okay. And then I can maximize from there, because again, nothing is impossible. I just need to remind myself of how to tap into that curiosity and asking those questions, so that then I can see the possibility of what can be.
I love that. And I'm not sure if I've heard you say nothing is impossible before, but I think that's a great mantra. And I think it's a great mindset to have. And it doesn't mean that you don't pivot, right? So
Correct.
nothing is
Absolutely.
impossible. And, if you are being smart and evaluating as you go, you might decide like nothing is impossible and my strategy has to change, right? Or the
Absolutely.
timeline has to change. And so it's, because I think there can be a thing like toxic positivity, right? And but that's not what you're saying, right? Nothing is impossible. And so I'm hearing wonderful things, right? How do I use my network? How can I be creative? Who do I reach out to, right? What do I do so that dream can come true? Because the dream is possible, right? So I love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's about just the journey forward. I think is always an option. And to what you're saying, like it's just about figuring out, okay, pivoting and learning that resilience that we have in us to say, okay, you've come to a full stop, then how do you navigate around it? And that is where the nothing is impossible comes to me. Like, there is not a this is it, that's the end of the road kind of thing.
And how do you communicate that to your kids? And that'll be our last question. Like, how do you help them dream big? Or maybe they teach you how to dream big. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a back and forth thing. But we've always, since they were little, I've always told them, whenever they, se tropiezan, right? Like they hit themselves, they trip up, you land, on the ground, and normally you hit yourself or there's something there. And I would always tell them, okay, it's bad, it hurts, but you're still going to get up, you go like this, you put a Band-Aid and you continue on, because that's all you can do. Like, you are not going to stay sitting in the ground for the rest of your life. There's going to come a moment that you're going to stand up and you're going to continue on. And that, in a way, was every time that even as adults now, when they feel like that's the end of the road, I'm like, okay. And then we stand up and we shake it off and we put the Band-Aid and we move on. And that has been a way to show the nothing is impossible kind of thing, because in the end, it's just recognizing that we need to pivot, that we can't stay still in whatever moment that we are in. We're just going to continue to move forward, and it's just your choice on how you move forward. So
I love it.
I hope it's worked. Now they use it with me. When they see me down, they're like, Mom, remember, like, you have to stand up, you shake it off, you put the Band-Aid on, and you move on. Like, there's nothing to it. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Yeah. I don't know if I want to, but yes, I know.
Right. But that's great. I mean, it means that you have passed on an important lesson, right? And that they now can come around and be a support to you.
Yeah.
So that's wonderful. I love that. I absolutely love that. And I don't think it means that you can't rest, right? So you might rub yourself off, put that Band-Aid on, breathe a little, rest a little, and, get your energy back up so that you can restart. So I love that. I love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, it has been a pleasure talking with you. I want to invite folks who are listening to join United Latinas. We are a wonderful, wonderful community. You can see us on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and you can join our network on Mighty Network. It's such a beautiful community that I have had the pleasure to be a part of for a while now, and now to be a board member in. And love that I get to spend a lot of time with Ilhiana and with Sandra and with the rest of the board and members. Ilhiana, is there anything that you want to say about upcoming events?
Yes, we have a lot of upcoming events. We have a really wonderful summer packed with many, many things. So make sure that you join and that you check us out at unitedlatinas.com. We've added new circles because we've realized that the coaching circles are becoming a really great way to connect and to learn with each other. So we have our our Latina speaker circles, that's once a month. We have our business coaching circles that are twice a month. And we recently added our Neuro Latina circles that are also twice a month. And that is to help us shift our mindset into a mindset of empowerment and abundance. So that one also started. And then we have a lot of other things, but check those out. You won't want to miss them. They're amazing.
Wonderful. And of course, if you are in Massachusetts or near South Massachusetts, there is a beautiful event that is taking place tomorrow night in Taunton. I will be there. Ilhiana, I know you will be there too. And so if you're within driving distance, or, you could hop on a plane if you wanted, please join us. It's going to be a great night. And thank you so much, Ilhiana, for inviting me to host, for teaching me how to use StreamYard, and for talking with me about motherhood.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. This was a wonderful, wonderful cafecito, and we hope to see you next week.
Thank you.